Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching us. ESBR Boxing, myself and Paul Kelly. We are back. We are in preview mode and we are on British. Well, it's a British fight, but it's for a world title, isn't it, Paul? We've got Richard Riakporhe versus Chris Billam-Smith coming live from Selhurst Park Football Ground, obviously on the Saturday night. Paul, lovely for you to join me. Obviously, this is a rematch of a fight, obviously, it took place some years back, which Riakporhe edged in a split decision, but obviously Billam-Smith now is world champion. Friend of the show, Chris Billam-Smith. So let's put that out there ready. But yeah, 17-0 Richard Riakporhe versus 19-1. The one obviously being the Riakporhe fight, Chris Billam-Smith. Paul, this is taking place obviously at cruiserweight as well. We don't like to spend too long, do we, beating around the bush or mincing our words on this. We like to get sort of straight into it, really. And I'm actually going to mention a champion up at the weight as well, Paul. Here, rather than talking straight about this fight, I'm going to ask you about Opetaia, Paul. And what I'm going to ask you actually is whether, I suppose it's a question really of who out of these two, before we go into predictions who's going to win, who do you think would fare better, let's say, against Opetaia, where that fight to possibly take place next for the winner? Who do you think would fare better, Paul?
Thanks for having me on, mate. It's a toughie. I mean, I think first and foremost, I see why you're mentioning Opetaia. I think he's in most people's minds the single best cruiserweight in the world. And I do agree with that. So I don't think I would pick either of these two to beat him, right? But if I'm going on best chance, I'd suppose I probably got to edge Riakporhe. Just he's 6'5", so he's very big. He would be the size of a lot of heavyweights. His dimensions are obviously he's a good bit bigger than Billam-Smith, and then stylistically as well. I think we've seen stylistically that Billam-Smith can really be outboxed. Um, you look at that last fight there, against Masternak. And yes, he ended up getting the win. Did he body shot or something happened again? But he was down on the cards. He was getting peppered with the jab and the backhand. And Masternak looked like he was comfortable in there before the ultimate ending. Tommy McCarthy in the first fight nearly beat Chris Billam-Smith. Obviously got annihilated in the second, but someone that was moving and stuff. I don't think Chris Billam-Smith would do too well against someone like Jai Opetaia. I think that would end in a stoppage defeat personally. Riakporhe, again, I'm not saying that he wins. I think he loses to Jai Opetaia as well, personally. But I would see it being more of a struggle, I'd say, for Jai Opetaia in the sense that you'd be wary of Riakporhe's size, his power. Big puncher Richard Riakporhe, as I said, long levers. It would be difficult for Opetaia to get in on the inside. That's what he would have to do. Riakporhe, you never know, could keep him at range. Don't think he would be able to do that. But yeah, I'd it's kind of a long-winded answer, mate, to say that I don't think either have a chance of beating Jai Opetaia personally. Although I would maybe, I'd love to see those fights, but I do give Riakporhe more of a chance. What about you?
Well, yeah, no, I think, look, Chris Billam-Smith, if you're tuning in tune out now, I actually agree with you. I think I have Opetaia beating both, frankly. I think the movement of Opetaia would cause Billam-Smith real problems. I actually can see a stoppage win there as well for Opetaia, maybe sort of Billam-Smith, tough competitor. I can see him going out on a shield, though, sort of mid to second half of the fight, frankly, so almost sort of 8 to 9. Riakporhe, for the reasons you mentioned, I think will be a tougher fight. He's 6'5", I think, big long levers, like you say, and carries power. I think it'd be a tougher fight for someone like Opetaia to break down, but I also think Opetaia would beat him. I can see that possibly going points as well. So I think neither would beat him, but I think Opetaia would struggle more, like you said, with Riakporhe. But let's tune back into this fight, Paul, really, and discuss obviously what's going to happen at Selhurst Park here. So Billam-Smith, as we mentioned, lost a split decision last time out. Ref scored it, 95-94, very close, 93-96, then wider, 97-92 to Riakporhe. I suppose the question I'm going to ask you, Paul, is, to your mind, let's you're sitting in Chris Billam-Smith's changing room, you're giving him his final instructions. What do you think? What are you working on? What are you advising him to do? What do you think he has to do differently to win this fight, Paul?
That's an interesting one for me, mate. I think first and foremost, I'd say, it's going to be almost 5 years on, just shy of 5 years on since their first fight. So it's evident that both fighters are going to be completely different fighters from 5 years ago. Billam-Smith's been the more active, and you'd probably say has made the more improvements, given that he lost that fight. He was relative unknown, and nobody really heard of Chris Billam-Smith at that time, and there was more of a hype about Riakporhe. Um, what does he have to do differently? I think he did have success in that fight. Billam-Smith. I'm trying to think back to it. I actually did watch that one, and I'm trying to think back to it. And there were definitely moments in there that he made it difficult for Riakporhe. But I think that Riakporhe just kind of he kind of outworked him. He obviously CBS was counted in the seventh, I believe, which was a massive help. But it was a close fight. You know, it's one of them where there's not a massive disparity either way, and the judges kind of had it really close. But if I'm Chris Billam-Smith and I'm Shane McGuigan and whoever in his corner, what am I telling him to do? Well, I'm telling him to move his head a lot more than he normally does. Just because I do think Chris Billam-Smith can be easy to hit and can get drawn into kind of biting down on the gum shield, planting the feet, and in the middle center of the ring, which is obviously entertaining for us. Don't get me wrong, but if you're Shane McGuigan, you'd be tearing your hair out in the corner, you don't want to be seeing that. I think you need to move more, become more of an elusive target to hit, but be more elusive on his feet. But he's got the smaller reach here. He'd maybe need to get it on the inside of Riakporhe, land his big shots, hit him to the body, hit him to the head, get back out, keep on moving his head, and then do the same thing. I think he kind of does need to make it nasty and rugged against Riakporhe here, given that Riakporhe has the size advantage. But yeah, I think that both fighters have come on leaps and bounds since the first one, so I am very intrigued to see the game plan here from both men.
Yeah, you know, Paul. On the preview show, maybe whether some of that knowledge has been absorbed between us in some sort of symbiosis. Because to be honest with you, I can't really add too much about that. I was thinking, were we both in the same corner, we wouldn't even be competing in voices because we'd have the same advice. I think again, you're exactly right. I think has to move more. Doesn't have obviously the size, to sort of fight on the outside. So has to get inside, move, and then when he's in there, get busy. Almost a bit like we saw him do with the Coley, even though Coley obviously ripped for different fighters. But when Billam-Smith obviously got in and got near a Coley, like banged him as much as he could. It was flurries, wasn't it? Flurries of sort of activity then. Trying to avoid, obviously, I suppose, the holding him with Coley, but obviously to sort of score as well. So I think he needs to kind of do something factually quite similar to that. Whether it'll work or not, I don't know, because obviously I think Riakporhe's a different proposition to a Coley, and also carries power himself. But I think, movement is key for Billam-Smith. To be honest with you, I'm not sure he's got the movement that's going to be required. That's for me, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he sort of fights, like you say, he tends to bite down the gum shield and likes to fight one way. So I have to almost temper his natural instincts in some ways in this fight for me to prevail. But that's what it's going to be. A bit of movement and obviously flurry when you're actually in range, basically throw essentially. And body, I think, will be key in this fight as well. So that's what I'd be advising him. But, say we've advised him, we've sent him out to the ring now, Paul. We've got him in there. The ring walks have happened. You and I, we're down now by the apron. Let's go to final predictions, really. How do you see this fight going, Paul? I'm not going to, the chivalrous thing for me to give my prediction first, but I'm not going to do so, Paul. I'm going to come to you. Who wins this fight? Riakporhe versus Chris Billam-Smith, world title, WBO World Cruiserweight Championship. Who wins, Paul, and why?
I do have a winner, but first and foremost, I do want to quickly say, it's very interesting what you said there about the Akoli fight, because if you think about it, dimension-wise, obviously completely different stylistically, but Riakporhe's not too dissimilar to Akoli. So if you're Chris Billam-Smith, you're thinking, I've beaten someone like this, I can do it again. But I think we're going to hear on the new on Saturday 15th. I think the WBO World Cruiserweight title will be staying in London with Richard Riakporhe. It will not be going back down to the south coast of Bournemouth. I think Richard Riakporhe wins this, and I think he wins it on points. I think both men will have their success, but I'm edging Richard Riakporhe. Don't think it'll be a split, maybe an 8-4, something along those lines, but I think Riakporhe wins this one on the three judges scorecards, mate. What about yourself?
Already talked to me. No, you know what? I should have gone first because I know it looks like I'm copying you again here, but I totally agree with you. I think Richard Riakporhe wins this. I think I can actually, to be honest with you, I can even see him hurting Chris Billam-Smith. I can see a potential late stoppage, but I would, if I had to put money on it, I would probably favour points. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if somewhere around sort of 9 to 10, Riakporhe gets hold of Billam-Smith, stops him, maybe coming in. Billam-Smith, like we said, a brave fighter, maybe takes quite a bit of punishment to get stopped. I think we see, a Riakporhe out on the town with that belt. Maybe he's coming out the limo, Madonna in there, whatever. Maybe he's on a big night out in the West End somewhere after this. I don't know. Maybe he keeps it sort of southeast. Who knows? But anyway, I think Riakporhe is going to win this. I really do. I like Billam-Smith, but I think Billam-Smith technically as a world championship level isn't necessarily as rounded as some of the other fighters up there. And I feel like Riakporhe is someone that could beat him, and I think beat him by the least stoppage or points. But Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much, guys, as always, for watching. Check out, obviously, the other content we've got on the channel, which obviously, we've got other previews, reviews. We'll have fighter interviews, obviously, from this card and reaction going in and big fight breakdown stuff of all that nature. Check out the channel for that. Like and subscribe, etc., etc., etc. Paul, as always, thank you very much for joining me. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.